knowing that each day they spend in pursuing the corporation's success in each of their individual roles, they do participate in providing for what is good for their co-workers, for the customers and suppliers, and for the communities in which they work.
Where corporate governance is coming into play is that now the regulators, the businessmen, the investors, they're all looking at investing or going to businesses that they can, again, and I keep hammering this, it's the trust factor.
An indicator is the outward orientation of the company. The company never thinks of itself. It always thinks in terms of how it can serve its customers, the society taken as a whole, the economy taken as a whole, and the common good.
There's already plenty of studies mentioning that there's a parallel relationship between profitability and good governance. Investors are looking seriously into businesses that are practicing good governance.
That we are a thought leader and a credible network of professional independent directors, and that we lead and catalyze change for better corporate governance practices in the private sector.
Because we in the Philippines cannot be left behind. We have to be aligned with everybody else in the world, and better if we're aligned with the best in the world, so that we ourselves would be in a position to serve the best interests of the Philippines, of the Philippine economic community, and of course all of the people that deal with corporations.
Well, ICD is the country's premier institute for corporate advocacy, pursuing as much as possible excellence in corporate governance ecosystem of our country.
The Institute of Corporate Directors in the Philippines is part of the global network of directors. Now, as for the Philippines and where ICD is helping and how the world is coming to know about ICD, that slowly we are changing businesses one company at a time.
ICD has a wide sphere of influence to our partnerships with other institutes of directors in other countries, and that ICD has played a key role in influencing policy reforms to strengthen and improve corporate governance in our own country.
The progress that has been made in the field of corporate governance all of these past several years. And ICD has been the forefront of making sure that the Philippines is thus aligned and in fact is fully in step with all of the progress that is being done in the rest of the world.
So this called for a view as well as strategies in order to address the shift from the old normal to what is now the new normal.
The impact of the pandemic, to my surprise, has been positive. And the lockdown came, we felt, well, we have no more business. But the reality is that precisely because corporations were faced with a lot of challenges, they had to introduce quite a lot of changes, and which have made a significant difference in the way how we're able to continue and in fact make progress in our advocacy.
I believe that there are many opportunities which is still available for ICD, which will require, however, our enhanced image and reputation, more marketing and promotion efforts, enhancement of our efficiency in operations, and more member engagement.
In the next few years, you'll be seeing a major digital transformation. Part of that is the major digital transformation that we're going through. And the other part of that is the opportunity to be part, not just local, but global.
ICD must now move vigorously forward into a brave new world of corporate governance advocacy, to integrate into its operations and programs the evolving technologies. That is the ideal and the mission that ICD hopes to integrate in the Philippines, so that the Philippine corporate sector is better understood and recognized by the international players and international investors.
ICD has to be part of Dream Philippines because corporations are only a part of the bigger reality that is the Philippines. So ICD has made a great start, but we cannot end there. We have to reach out to many more sectors so that we can contribute towards the full transformation of the Philippines, no less.
So, pleasant morning to everyone, and welcome to the Season 3 launch episode previews of the Institute of Corporate Directors Masterclass series. On behalf of ICD, we would like to thank you for raising the bar of good governance with us. Before we start, we would like to remind you of the following for us to have a fruitful session. Should you encounter any technical issues during the session, you may contact any of our ICD staff virtually present here by messaging them at the chat box. As we want to improve our services further, please accomplish the evaluation form. It will be sent at after the session. If you have any questions, please list them down and attend the scheduled solo session per speaker. However, if you really want to get the answers and can't wait for the solo sessions, we can always do an exclusive session for you. You may contact also the programs at icd.ph email for any questions that you may have for the speakers, and we will forward them to back to you. Lastly, this session is being recorded and streamed live for ICD's documentation. Thank you. To officially start the session, it is my pleasure to introduce to everyone our first speaker for today. Ms. Imelda or Ms. Ida Chongson is a trustee and teaching fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors. She is also the chairperson of BrewLife UK Philippines and is the president and chief executive officer of Opal Portfolio Investments of SPB AMC Incorporated. She also sits on various boards, including publicly listed technologies company Surpass Inc. and FinTech Global Resources Inc., as well as a trustee of several organizations, the Institute of Corporate Directors, FinTech Alliance Philippines, FinTech Philippines Association, and Vice Chairman of Governance Committee at the Management Association of the Philippines. She is a graduate of Business in Accountancy at RMIT, Australia, and obtained a perfect score in accounting for bankers in exam. Let's all welcome Ms. Ida Chongson, introducing her topic, Redefining the Future of Finance, FinTech's Role in Shaping Our Economy. Ms. Ida, I'd like to call on
Hi.
you.
Hi, good morning, Shaira. Thank you for the intro. I should have just updated. I know you just got me to double check earlier, but yeah, there's a couple of minor changes there. Anyhow, thank you. So good morning. Blessed good morning to everyone. I understand we have 200 participants to look at the teaser of the masterclass of ICD. So I'm with you for about 18 minutes. And my topic is redefining future of finance and the fintech role in shaping the economy. And to give bird's eye view of the main lecture, which is going to happen. Sorry, when is this going to happen again? Our main lectures?
Our main lecture for you po, Ms. Ida, it would be on, hold on po.
And that can be
Yours is on
standalone.
July 28th.
And the sessions could be standalone, no? Or they could take the whole thing.
They could take just one or two sessions, and or there is also an option available for every session to be attended.
Right. I highly recommend you take all the sessions. So they're all interesting topics. Anyhow, I'll take you to a quick bird's eye view of the topics I'm going to take up, which is quick cover on the problems of the Philippine economy, the top 6, possible fintech solutions to be able to help provide solutions on those problems, where the fintech industry is at now, and the government initiatives. So with that, let me start. Bear with me. I'm going to start with the video. Let me just share this.
The successful rollout of the Targeted Poverty Alleviation Strategy has lifted China's 832 impoverished counties, including the 14 areas, out of absolute poverty. Guizhou Province in southwest China was the last to announce zero poverty. In 2012, it had an impoverished population of 9.2 million, a tenth of the national total. Pursuing development while protecting the environment, Guizhou has built over 20,000 bridges among its karst mountains. Half of the world's highest bridges are in the province. Thanks to a series of targeted poverty alleviation measures, Guizhou's modern agriculture, ecological tourism, and big data industries are flourishing. On November 23, 2020, China's last 9 impoverished counties, all in Guizhou, were removed from the poverty list, meaning that all the country's 832 poor counties had been lifted out of poverty.
Okay. All right. So what's the comparison in the Philippine setting? You have this province of Guizhou with 9 million population in China. And by the way, they did this to 832 counties in China. And Guizhou was the last province to be tested and actually got out of poverty from 2012 to 2019. And per video, I just took a quick view on that one. They concentrated on 2 main grounds. One is the infrastructure, the bridges, so there could be deliveries, and the other one is the digital economy, where financial technology has been playing a big role. Okay, so with that, let's start first with the Philippine setting. What are the top 6 problems in the Philippines? Number 1 problem, poverty, similar as Guizhou. Number 2 problem is unemployment, then followed by weak infrastructure, followed by heavy on remittance. And by the way, that one of the other, if you notice, this is already 6. The other one's education, but the other one happens to be the corruption or the perception of corruption. So those 6 is where I kind of want to concentrate on, where fintech can help. And I'm just, again, going to give you little bits and pieces. We only have 20 minutes. This is only bird's eye view. Poverty alleviation, and this is where the Bangko Sentral, the Department of Finance, and all the government agencies have always been hammering on financial inclusion. And where fintech has been able to help is the getting into right down to the indigent areas where they can actually use like technologies such as Gcash, i.e. e-wallets. The e-commerce, I will expound that a little bit and how that can actually help people be able to do businesses in their own household and now doing global. On the corruption side, it goes without saying that when things are digital, things are transparent. So it actually helps that. And this is where I think, and I truly believe the government is really pushing for that. What financial technology that is actually helping there's blockchain that can provide transparent and tamper-proof. There's the digital identification verification with your starting with your national ID, open finances having part of that as well, automated compliance, decentralized systems. Hope to expand on that in the main lecture. What about, there's a dependency on remittances where if the OFWs cannot remit, it kind of lowers our collection. But there are ways to actually improve on that, i.e. the e-commerce and the digital asset offering, which, by the way, already finalized in the SEC, this particular law. And I would like to tackle that in, again, more detail during the main. Inadequate education, this is what's so fantastic about practically the bigger platforms, such as the Union Bank UBX and even Gcash, Maya. They offer free seminars, webinars, in fact, in the platform itself, They offer short videos on financial literacy as such. Okay, so when we're talking about changing the whole Philippine economy and focusing on that to be able to turn around, we need to look at the wheel itself and how it does turn, starting from the consumer, every single Filipino, right down to the businesses. And of course, it'll have a domino effect on the economy. For the consumer, there's a lot of changes as far as the financial technology is concerned. There's the digital banking. There's a lot of retooling happening, digital transformation happening, pushing for financial literacy, doing an improved credit score. I highlighted this because I'll take it up today. With the businesses, credit score model is slowly changing. Access to finance is quite important in business because 70% of the main problem of businesses is actually finance. And this is where financial technology can also help in terms of providing you access. For the inflow on the remittances, there's, again, digital banking and digital asset offering. Okay, so I'm going to start with baby steps. I'm going to start with the consumer. So I'm going to give you a live example. I'm going to call them Marites and Karen. Marites, her pay, she was asking to be paid in cash, while Karen asked to be paid through the wallet. So going through that in a little bit more detail is a year down the track, Marites continued to get her pay via cash, but Karen, because she opened an account, was able to get within 6 months of using her wallet or her account, was able to get a credit card. By the way, this is a live case. After 6 months, she was able to, she was able to get a small loan, and she was able to borrow eventually a 5-year loan, 400,000 to be exact, and she was able to buy a farm, which the family, a small farm in the province, and the family is now using that to farm rice. So in a way, the difference between the two is one went to digital and the other one didn't. The other one was able to build a credit score, and what that credit score has done and the access to finance, it's provided a record, access to products and services, start a business, invest, borrow, and even scale up, and was able to look at competitive products and compare that. And how she was able to do that? Simple. Just maintain account in wallet. So moving forward into the main topic, which is the financial technology. So what is it anyway? Financial technology is used to describe new technology that seeks to improve and automate financial services. It is an emerging industry that uses technology to improve activities in the finance. So you may be wondering, okay, well, when people in earlier days, people would say, oh, fintech, that's crypto. Actually, that's not the case. In the Philippine setting, as of December 2021, and this is the map of 2022, but the record is December 2021, there are 216 fintech companies, and I believe this end of 2023, we're looking at 260 fintech companies. I know this is small font, don't worry about this. So there's digital banking, there's actually wallets, there's payments, lending products, digital-centric banks, there's P2P platform, crowdfunding. So there's a lot of actually different industries or businesses under the wing of financial technology. The highest number happens to be lending. There's crowdfunding, there's payments, e-wallets, remittance, and blockchain is and crypto is 28 compared to the lending, which is 65. There are 6 digital banks, digital-centric banks, InsurTech, eKYC, WealthTech. With that, you may be thinking, what's the structure? If you put that in the pie, again, the biggest happens to be in lending, followed by payments, e-wallets. You may ask, well, what's happening in Asia? How is fintech playing along? Happy to say that as of December 2021, record of 2022, there are already 35 unicorns. Unicorn is billion-dollar companies. And out of the 35 unicorns, fintech leads in terms of the sectoral split, followed by e-commerce, logistics, and diversified internet. And guess what? 19 out of the 35 happened only in 2021. And happy to say that we have one at the time. Philippines got one. This is GCash, a billion-dollar company. And as of June 2022, we now have three. That's PayMaya, Maya, and of course, GCash. And if you look at the ASEAN pie, where the unicorns are, big percentage is again fintechs. In fact, if you look at this individually and you look at that in more detail, all of them are actually connected with technology. E-commerce, logistics, diversified internet, technology, OTA, and so on, telecommunication, and so on. You may be wondering, okay, what is happening in the Philippines? What are the government initiatives? Happy to tell you that there are plenty. In fact, the present administration came up already with the Philippines digital, where, sorry, I was looking at if there was a message there. Okay, where it's called the Philippine Development Plan for up to 2028. And since this is a 500-page book, and by the way, it's downloadable, you can access this through the internet to find out what's in it. But I just made a couple of slides on this one, just for this particular teaser, that the concentration on the 6 items in the transformation agenda, number 1, digitalization. And then followed by servicification, dynamic innovation, enhanced connectivity, greater collaboration between local and national government, and partnerships with the private sector. If you look at that, 4 out of the 6 relates to technology. And other government strategies in promoting the digital services, we have the Department of Budget and Management, we have the DICT, the e-governance, which is part of that e-governance act, which was actually launched. The super app was only launched last month, where DICT, Ivan Uy and good friend DICT, David Almerol, did the super launch in Malacanang. And the heart of that is actually, just to be quick at this, because I only have 3 minutes remaining, is to integrate into a one e-gov cloud and have all the government agencies integrate on an e-gov pay. Okay. The other major initiative that's this time by the Department of Finance and BSP happens to be in the wing of Open Finance Framework. And may I just share my screen on this one? We just opened the launch on the Open Finance Framework 2 days ago on the pilot launch. And just to give you a bird's eye view on what it is, it's kind of starting first with the payments, then with the open banking expanding to the other financial industries such as wealth management, insurance, pension, mortgage, unsecured lending, asset management, and so on. And hopefully eventually can also include health, telco. The telco utilities in Australia, they're already doing that under the Open Finance wing. So we're taking baby steps at this point. Incidentally, I'm honored to be part of the Open Finance, BSP Open Finance Oversight Committee, chairing the governance framework. So there, we just made that launch, and this the right-hand picture happens to be the team that part of the team that made the Open Finance Framework. And kind of a cute launch that we did where we converted BSP Governor Medallion into an avatar and launching information download to that and able to input that in a secured manner.
And there you have it. Open Finance.
Okay, so what exactly is the Open Finance Framework in my last 2 minutes? This circular 112, and the heart of that circular is it empowering customers, giving them better control of their personal and financial data, catalyzing development of products and services that are responsive to their needs. The trust of the BSP is to promote enabling environment to foster innovation, encourages competition, and advances financial inclusion while safeguarding the integrity and stability of the financial system. The heart of this is you, consumer, you will be in charge of your data, and it's up to you to provide consent. So that's the simplistic view of this. Under the Open Finance Framework, your data information from one institution can be, with your consent, can be provided. And by the way, it could be a limited consent in terms of what data can be provided. For argument's sake, if you want to apply for a loan in another bank where you don't have your credit information in. So with that, let me just stop my share screen. I hope you're finding that useful, because this time, yeah, it's really Philippines' turn to evolve, and we can do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ida. So let's give them a reactory round of applause for Ms. Ida. And thank you for an insightful discussion on finance technology. Now we will go to the second preview discussion. I'll be introducing Attorney Teodoro Calao IV. Attorney Teodoro Calao IV is the Corporate Secretary and Thought Leadership Chair of the Institute of Corporate Directors. He has chaired ICD's family-owned or controlled corporations circle since 2007, where he was primarily responsible for creating and developing ICD's governance framework for family-owned and controlled corporations. He has taught and consulted on the framework both in the Philippines and in abroad, with the latter primarily with the World Bank's International Finance Corporation. In May 2021, he was installed as the Institute's youngest Life Fellow. Among other graduate degrees, he has a Master of Laws from Harvard Law School, an MBA jointly from the Kellogg School of Management and the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. He also has a Master of Studies in Sustainability Leadership from the University of Cambridge. Attorney Calao is the first Filipino to simultaneously attain advanced certification in both family business and family wealth advising from the Family Firm Institute, the world's leading industry association on family business. In October 2022, Attorney Calao became the first Filipino to be elected a fellow of the Family Firm Institute in both of that organization's recognized disciplines specializations, family firm governance and family wealth advising. Everyone, let's all welcome Attorney Teodoro Calao IV, introducing his topic, the governance of family firms, perspectives from established models. Passing the mic to you, sir.
Thank you, Shaira. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third season of Masterclass. My topic for this year is family business, particularly new perspectives that have arisen for the last 2 decades, which I think is particularly useful for those who are engaged in family business. In this regard, if there is any show that you should watch or stream today, if you're in family business, it is Succession at HBO. Why? Because all of the mistakes that families make who are engaged in business in the course of the 4 seasons are highlighted in that show. We like to highlight the universality of the 3-gen syndrome, which is that over the course of 3 generations, 9 out of 10 times, not 4 out of 5, but 9 out of 10 times, most family businesses that are started disappear or are no longer with the family. And you can see here different iterations of that in different cultures. There are 3 major reasons for that, and they're all in the show if you are a fan of it. This guy here, the one where I'm pointing to, Uh, the patriarch, he is a perfect example of failing to properly plan for succession because the business is all about him. He doesn't care about the future. It's all about him. Okay. Second major cause is the incoming generation. They are not nurtured properly to have a culture of stewardship in order to lead. And third, just as important, the four siblings together, they cannot escape the fact that they will not, if they ever succeed, govern like their father. I think that was highlighted best during the last episode when the eldest son said, I should be the leader because I'm the eldest son. And the daughter said, no, you're not. That's, that has nothing to do with who should succeed. So those inherent family dynamics, these three causes of why 9 out of 10 businesses are not sustainable. That's the reason why we have this field. And that's the reason why over the course of 5 decades, there has been an explosion of literature and research into family business, leading to the growth of three-dimensional models. The three-dimensional model and the ICD Family Business Governance Framework, these are all models that hopefully will help us address these dynamics better. From the perspective of the different dimensions of family business, it's not just the running the business as a business, but managing the family dynamics so that you will focus on running the business properly. Second, you have to do it in a deliberate way. And third, of course, you have to look at context. All of these models that I'm going to be talking about the next 20 minutes and in my full episode, you know what? At the end of the day, they simplify, but they're not supposed to be simplistic. At the end of the day, if you're in family business, you are the expert of your business family's particular context. Before I go to the new models that have arisen through the years, let me talk about the foundations, at least abroad and here. The foundation for all family business governance frameworks is a 1989 three-dimensional model of the different dimensions of what the family business is. On one part, you have management, professional management, and family members. On the other hand, you also have the family. But a third dimension is the owners. And that three-dimensional model is the basis for all frameworks going forward. If you're wondering who invented that model, he was still at Harvard Business School then, now he's at MIT. He's that elder guy there, that's Professor John Davis, who, I actually ended up meeting 25 years ago in 1996, when, as part of my family business, my own mother, former Philippine Stock Exchange Chair Trina Cala, who is also watching now, had the foresight to let me join Professor Davis when he first came here to the Philippines. I actually have a picture from 1996 of us together, but I'm not gonna show that. This is also an edited picture, by the way, because if you saw the picture then and you see the picture now, you will notice that we are both horizontally challenged. So you're gonna be left with that picture na lang, okay? Needless to state, in 2007 in ICD, we were the first institute to push the fact that, corporate governance for the more than 80% of businesses that are owned or controlled by families is not just about the management side. It's also about the family side. In addition to the Davis model, together with Professor Stanislao, we came up with 7 core governance values and a proper way to adopt these values and perspectives regardless of what stage your business is in. What we wanted to highlight with the framework is it's best to start the earlier the better. If you're an entrepreneur with your dreams of founding a business and your kids, you just have kids who are not in the business yet, that's when you should start thinking about family business, because the most important value that you can imbibe in your kids if your business eventually succeeds is the culture of stewardship. Needless to state, these are foundational models. And inherently, when we talk about family business, we are talking about really, it's like talking about an elephant. More so with the fact that often you have different values when it comes to business and family. Here on the left-hand side, you have the usual family values. And sometimes this is very different when it comes to the corporate values. So needless to state, no one model actually captures the reality and dynamics of family business. And over the years, the last 2 decades, there has been an explosion of proposed perspectives, ways, models to view a business. And my episode this year focuses on what I view as the 10 most important that have come up through the years. And the way I can divide them so you can understand them properly is to go with the Davis model. I have 4 from the family side, 3 from the ownership side, and 3 from the management side. Let me talk about the family side first. What is the real wealth of the family? Now, Professor Jaffe likes to highlight that it's not just, how much you make. It's the total sum of qualitative capital. And he highlights here, when you talk about qualitative capital, it's those 5 kinds of assets that together provide a basis for determining what qualities you should nurture in your family. Shared values and purpose, appropriate governance policies and structures, long-term business, a perspective of long-term business resiliency, cross-generational engagement, okay, education, and a commitment, an enduring commitment on the part of the family to push and create value together. Needless to state, while this model is built on a very, I think this is one of the most robust in terms of the number of studies made, there are alternative models. Another one is by Dwyer in terms of the focus on what actually is the capital of a family. And he identifies 3: human, social, and financial. Note emphasis on last, financial. Okay, why? Because at the end of the day, while you can start a business, okay, and while you can, it is very difficult to grow that, okay, if you do not have a stable family with trusting relationships. His own studies have highlighted that business startup success, okay, earlier the better, family well-being, and individual happiness focuses not just on how much money you have, but a healthy human and social capital environment. Let's focus on that. Okay, what do you mean by a healthy social environment? Well, here's another alternative model from Kellogg highlighting the importance of emotional and social intelligence. How do you, they like to highlight, we have a saying that it takes a village to raise a family. Well, the most important people who raise families, the current generation. So what do you should you imbibe in your kids? Self-management, relationship management, social awareness, self-awareness. These are the kinds of, this is a model for you to view what it means to hopefully create future business leaders. Let's contextualize that model further with this other model also from Kellogg, partly developed by that former model. Very often in the Philippines, we see when it comes to succession, it's all about the reality of pushing for positions. What you see at the bottom here of the screen. When actually as a family, if you're doing it right, you should be focusing on developing talent. Okay, how many times have we seen a father, or a mother, founder, because he or she wants the kid to, be in the business, put the kid in a position with no real responsibility. Happened in one of my clients, I'm not going to tell which, but, that kid will not develop into anything because that kid will never be held accountable for any of his or her actions, right? So This fourth model that I highlight importantly distinguishes between what you should be developing when your children are already in the business. Ideally, after time outside so that they can gain external experience, rather than what usually happens. The siblings end up fighting over position. And when you look at succession, 4 seasons, it's all there. It's all about position. When the current generation should be looking at how do we best provide for their talent going forward, because not all of them will be operating owners. Speaking of ownership, let's go to that. When it comes to ownership, there has been actually major research into how to do it, ideally, properly. Okay? Starting with the fact that when you get to the second or third generation, you inevitably will have 5 classes of family business owners who have to be properly managed. Over time, after the first generation, you will see the first class of operating owners shrink as more and more of succeeding generations become governing owners or active owners. What's the difference? Ideally, you want to have both. Okay? Governing owners are those in the family council or family assembly that you push the business going forward. Active owners are those who really care, not just for the business, but how the family will be in business together. Not everybody will like that. In the third generation, because some of them will lead their own lives, some of them will see the business primarily as an investment. Okay, what you want to avoid is investing owners who see the business primarily as a cash cow. You have to understand that, while you can tolerate investing owners, you don't want those who might prevent you from growing and creating value in the business. What you should not have is a fifth class of owners we call passive owners who really don't care. Now, the problem with them is that they end up getting swayed, particularly by those with investing owners who primarily see the business as a cash cow. They can be swayed very easily. So if you have a passive owner who really doesn't care about the business anymore, or being part of the family as the plan extends itself, ideally you should encourage them to exit and grow their own legacy differently. Now, those are the 5 classes of owners. I also want to highlight that 5 key ownership rights that owners have in a business. First, the type of family ownership that you want. Second, given the type of family ownership, the governance structure that will govern how you run the business, so that you can create an appropriate owner strategy that will communicate what you want and transition successfully to the next generation. There are 4 main types of family ownership, okay, by Professors Barron and Lachenauer. First, it's sole owner. In terms of exclusivity, sole owner and or partnership, several, and then concentrated. You have to be an owner to be a decision maker, or distributed. Anybody can be an owner subject to qualifications. Usually from generation 1, the choice for how of the ownership type you make will depend on on how you want to govern. If you're a founder, usually it's sole owner, my way or the highway. But over time, you have to change that. And you have to decide, will it be a partnership, or do we find people who are more, do we allow opportunities for anyone who's qualified to come in? That will lead to I'd like to focus on these 2. And I'll talk about the 5 in my whole episode. That leads to deciding how to govern given the ownership type that you've settled on. And when it comes to governance, there are actually, as the professors highlight, 4 kinds of quote-unquote rooms. The family room, where you deal with all matters related to the family. The owner room, where you decide as owners, how you are stewards of the business. That is communicated to the boardroom or the board of directors, which runs the business, which governs the business, so that management can direct, given the strategy set by the board of directors. Needless to state, you see that there are open doors here because family members come in at all these stages. This is an example of the kind of governance structure following the 4-room models as highlighted. Finally, I want to highlight, diba, what makes owners competent? What makes owners good? And in my Learned Society, one of my other Learned Society, which I became a fellow just last year, we have embarked on a major study to determine how do you professionalize ownership. Because frankly, there's been consensus that it's not just about shared values and the psychological glue to move together, healthy family relationships. And after that, there's been an emphasis on informal and formal governance protocols. It goes beyond that. You have to understand, okay, that owners require unique competencies. And these are the self-competence. How do you run yourself? Family competence. How do you manage family dynamics properly? Business competence. How do you govern the businesses given the family's purpose and mission? And all of this must be contextualized. Now, the study that is that is currently being developed, the Family Firm Institute, highlights that we can provide metrics for all of this. So inevitably, going forward, you have an appropriate framework to judge how you are doing as owners. Final dimension, management. The number one question that I'm often asked is, if I encourage, not just me, most of those in family business, if I encourage external qualifications before going into the business, how does one person know when he or she should join the family business? And for that, we have this model, which is divided into 3 major pillars and highlights. First, when it comes to qualifications and commitment, okay, what are your qualifications? What are your motivation? And most importantly, particularly for those who are in business who are Chinese clans in business, are you really committed, or are you just doing it because it's tradition? You have to be committed. Second, when it comes to ownership and family dynamics, we look at family dynamics as separate from owner dynamics. And third, alignment. Alignment of the person deciding with the actual controlling owners. If you're not aligned with their wishes, be careful. Okay. Finally, if you're going to come in, will you have real responsibility? Will you be accountable so that people will say, hey, this person is good? Second, who will mentor and sponsor you in your career there? Do you have a voice in your career decisions? And is there a working leadership protocol? If there are any of these questions are answered or vague, be careful. Let's say you're in the family business. Kellogg has developed these 4 learning stages in how you should develop yourself as a family business leader. First, it starts with learning the business. When you are primarily being inquisitive, okay, your apprenticeship period, then you learn the business in terms of your particular family context. How do you innovate based on shared heritage? Then, when you finally are a leader, one of the top family leaders, you aim for insight in bringing and creating value for the business going forward. That doesn't end there. You have to transition eventually. So you have to look at foresight. How do you bring the business, nurture the next generation so that if the family wants to remain in that business, you can, provide that to them. Which leads me to my last model. If there is one more enduring trait of sustainable families in business together, note how I phrase that, sustainable families in business together. not just family businesses. If there is one enduring trait, it is. And this is based not just on family business, but corporate governance research. It is the development of trust for that individual or family with other stakeholders. Now, the rotary four-way test already highlights two core components of that: integrity and benevolence, a perspective for the other. But in a family business, you want to also highlight ability, resourcefulness, and over time, consistency. Delivering what you said you will consistently over time. This is actually the most important but most challenging formula for family businesses going together. Details, examples, chismis, and other clarifications. I will see you at our full episode on August 25, 2022, 4 p.m. via Zoom. That will be a 2-hour Zoom. We can also provide a Zoom session. We can also provide a 4-hour live episode with exercises. Thank you, everyone.
Again, thank you, Attorney Calao, for an insight on family firm governance. Now we go to the third preview discussion. I'll start by introducing Mr. Armand Cacacho. Sir Armand has numerous professional experiences as an independent consultant, advisor, director, and lecturer in various prominent companies in the USA and the Philippines. He has specialized in business strategy and innovation at Stanford Graduate School of Business and completed an additional postgraduate program in disruptive strategy and innovation at the Harvard Business School. Sir Armand is a fellow and a teaching faculty member of the Institute of Corporate Directors and a member of the National Association of Corporate Directors USA and Singapore Institute of Directors. Let's all welcome Mr. Armand Cacacho introducing his topic, Adopting an Entrepreneurial Mindset, a Premier for Board Directors. All right, passing the mic to you, Sir Armand.
Good morning. How's my volume, Shai? Is it okay?
It's clear po.
Good. So, good morning, everyone. So it seems like my topic is in sync or in alignment with the two previous speakers' topics, right? So, adopting an entrepreneurial mindset, a primer for board directors, right? So this topic, entrepreneurship, is near and dear to my heart because I was an entrepreneur for 17 years in San Francisco Bay Area, California. I founded a business that became very successful and I had fun with it. So I ended up running it for many years, right? And I was even recruited by a Fortune 200 corporation to do it inside a large organization. But on the other hand, I also founded another business, a technology business, in the early 2000s that I had to shut down because I couldn't get much traction. So I discovered that I was too early in the technology adoption curve. Okay, if you studied entrepreneurship, there's a called technology entrepreneurship. There's a technology adoption curve, and why I was too early there. I couldn't get much traction, so I had to shut it down. So those life and business experiences are invaluable to me. Something that I learned by doing it, and those are difficult to get from any business school. You gotta actually do it to learn it, right? So that's why I love this topic. It's near and dear to my heart. So I'm gonna skip that. So these are my Stanford graduate student mentees. Graduate students in engineering and management. I have been serving as mentor at Stanford since 2015, on and off. And some of these students have become successful entrepreneurs. The technology companies have become successful ventures. These are three young co-founders of a circular economy business from Malmo University's startup hub in Sweden. So they had a project when they were in the master's program, right? A circularity business. So it became an actual business, generating revenue and contributing to the Swedish economy. And they're trying to scale the business throughout Sweden and hopefully throughout the Nordic countries as well, right? So they came to me and asked, to mentor them, kind of give them mentorship on strategizing to scale the business throughout Sweden. All right, so great working with these three young co-founders. So the objectives for this course is number one, to understand the role of board directors in fostering entrepreneurial culture, right? And number two, to understand entrepreneurial leadership, especially in technology-driven enterprises, right? And number three, teach these very important skills, vital skills, that are important to entrepreneurs and innovation leaders. So this is the outline that I'm going to follow in September for my full lecture. I'm going to talk about the role of board directors and fostering the entrepreneurial culture, followed by entrepreneurial mindset and venture strategy, venture finance, the team, which is very important, venture team or venture organization. And then we'll talk about the law of failure, why companies fail, reasons for failure. And then I'm going to offer you some other resources that will aid you in your entrepreneurial journey. So the board directors need to set the tone at the top, right? They need to articulate the vision and their willingness to encourage innovation, creativity, and risk-taking, because entrepreneurship has the potential to create new markets, okay, and new revenue streams, and eventually, bring in growth to the whole organization. Okay? But the board needs to work with management to provide the necessary resources, budget, technology, talent, in order to pursue this entrepreneurial and innovation initiative. Okay. So for this course, we will be focusing on innovation-based, high-growth entrepreneurship, while we respect, SMEs, because they create jobs as well. For this course, we will be, focusing on innovation-based, high-growth entrepreneurship. Okay? They are key drivers in global economic growth. And the growth comes from mainly two sources, revolutionary, which is the use of disruptive technologies, such as the one that a fellow teaching faculty, Ida, talked about earlier, use of disruptive technologies. And secondly, it could be just, adding a feature to a laptop that will make the laptop faster, cheaper, and better. That's evolutionary. So those are the two types of entrepreneurship that we're going to be focusing on this course. Okay. So this is a picture of Silicon Valley, and to the north is San Francisco, and to the south is San Jose, and this is like a 40-mile corridor that has become the largest concentration of technology companies in the whole world. All right, starting with Hewlett Packard in 1939, when the founders formed the company in the founders' garage, to fast forward today, Twitter, Airbnb, Uber, and just a couple of months ago, ChatGPT. They're all in this corridor. Silicon Valley, between San Francisco and San Jose. Okay, so why is that? Why has Silicon Valley become a very successful, entrepreneurial ecosystem globally, right? Is it because of the climate? Is it because of the, it's like a laboratory of about 7 million people, okay? Is it the Bay? No, it's not. It's conventional wisdom that it is because of the philosophy and the state of mind and the spirit of and its style of doing business of these entrepreneurs that made or making this plot of lands, which is called Silicon Valley, so successful. Can it be modeled someplace else or in the Philippines, for example? We'll talk about that in September, okay? What are the skills needed for successful entrepreneurs? Sources of innovation, the key elements that drive success in entrepreneurial companies. So these are the big global challenges, which present, by the way, present huge market opportunities. Okay, so we're now, I think, 7 billion people on this planet, right? And forecasters are projecting that in about 20 years, there's going to be 9 billion people on this planet. So there's going to be a lot of challenges, and these are the 4 major ones: environment and sustainability, security and economic stability, digital and physical infrastructure, and health and education, which I think our previous speaker, Ida, also covered with particular emphasis in Southeast Asia and the Philippines. So this is this slide shows the different time frames in history, and on the y-axis the innovation that happened during those time frames to address the problems during those times, right? So in the 2020s, for example, we have sustainability, green economy, and which is not shown there is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, robotics, what have you, so many others, okay? So those are what we call push. And then in September, we're going to be talking about, opportunity recognition and the pursuit of opportunities, okay? The 3 questions that every venture capitalist asks for entrepreneurs. We're going to cover the different frameworks, lean startup strategies, business model canvas, and other frameworks, okay? So these are the 3 key questions that every venture capitalist asks. Big market. Do you have a big market? Do you have a winning strategy? Okay. Do you have a technology or product that can create a minimum of 10x in revenue or profit? Okay. Do you have a winning team? All right. So we're all going to cover all those topics in September when you talk about this during the course. Okay. So this is from Stanford Professor Steve Blank's lean startup model. His article was on the Harvard Business Review some time ago on lean startup models. Okay, so he teaches Stanford, by the way, on lean startup. So we're really, trying to experiment and search for a business that can be scaled to a large size, okay, quickly. All right. So that's why there's this new lean startup models now, because we're trying to minimize the cost to start a business, right? By prototyping at at the least cost, right? So we're gonna talk about this in the full masterclass. So this is another framework from Dr. Osterwalder. The business model canvas is basically a graphical representation of your business plan. So these are the questions that when you're building your business model canvas, you need to ask this, in order to build a good BMC or business model canvas, right? This is another framework, and we'll be talking about this in September. Jerry Kaplan's startup model, and we'll cover, different stages from founding, seed, growth through exit strategies in September. Okay, so it's a race to reduce risk and create value. All right. And the faster you do it, the less money involved, right? So we'll cover venture finance, of course. What are the key risks to reduce in a startup? Technology, market, team, finance. How do high growth entrepreneurs finance their ventures? So these are the, we'll cover this in September. Amount of cash needed, sources of capital. We'll take a look at a typical deal structure. Again, these are the different stages of financing: seed, early, mezzanine, late financing. So what are the hot risks that you need to reduce with the funds that you raise, at different stages of your fundraising? It's a team risk, technology risk, market risk, capital risk. Okay. So these are the sources of funding for your venture. It can start from FNF, friends and family, angels, eventually from VCs, and later on from institutional funders, investment banks. So these are, typical rates of returns that funders require at different stages of your venture. Seed funding, go to market expansion. These are the different IRRs, or required rates of returns that investors require. And then another important subject is venture team. Entrepreneurship is similar to an extreme sport, that there needs to be a good teamwork between people in your organization. And so we'll cover that. And then the critical human resources issues for new ventures, which Attorney Carlo covered earlier as well. These are the three basic elements in creating a winning team: recruiting, compensation, rewards, the stock options, creating a good culture. So not just recruiting internally, for engineers, sales, and marketing, but recruiting externally as well, for your advisors, board of directors, and even your legal and accounting services, right? We'll cover this, stock options, for example, contributions that team members could contribute to the venture, and how to compensate for those contributions. And then we'll also talk about the developing culture of innovation. Okay, and there's a good definition for this, culture. A strong system of informal rules that spells out how people are to behave most of the time. Okay, so this is important because you're assembling people from different backgrounds, so they need to be in sync and work as a team, right? So with that, I think I used up all my time, and I'll see you in September, for more comprehensive discussions of these topics. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Armand, for your discussion on. Hold on po. My Zoom is hanging. All right. Again, thank you, Sir Armand, for insightful discussion on entrepreneurship. We now go to the fourth preview discussion. I'd like to introduce Sir Michael Jose de Belsunce. He is a teaching fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors in the Philippines and the Institute of Corporate Governance in Spain. Sir Michael is currently the president of the Institute of Emotional Intelligence and Applied Neuroscience, IDENA, and the board advisor to the Digital Transformation Alliance of EU Tech, or the European Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Michael is an experienced board member in companies in the sectors of logistics, robot automation, food, biotech, and multimedia corporations with previous experience as the CEO, Strategy and Innovation Director, and Chief Digital Officer of medium and large corporates in both Spain and the Philippines. Mr. Michael has a bachelor's degree in Business Administration and Law, a master's degree in finance, and the doctorate in business economics. He has graduated in programs on digital transformation, strategy, in 4 top European business schools. Let's all welcome Mr. Michael Jose Belsunce, introducing his topic, transforming companies with digital disruption-ready boards of directors. Giving the mic to you, Sir Michael.
Okay, Pauline, I should have the controls for the presentation here.
Yes, sir. You just have to accept the invitation for the remote.
Which is in?
Hold on, sir. Let me try again.
Okay.
Okay. How about that, sir?
I still don't see them.
There you go, sir. You can control it now.
Okay, very well. First, good morning to everyone. Thank you very much to be here present in this teaser of the seminar I will be holding in October. So the objective of my presentation will be to go through the main aspects, most important issues that are going to be explained in October. So because Pauline has done a very good job in making my presentation, let's just skip this. I don't here, yeah. I don't see very well. I'm sorry, it is going back and forth. Okay. So the title is Transforming Companies with Disruption-Ready Boards. So this means that it is very much targeted at the members of the board of directors. Now, as we will see later, there is a distinctive situation between a listed company, which are normally very big companies, and most of the companies that exist in any country, which are small and medium-sized companies. So we are going to explain basically the same ideas that can be applied for big businesses, but specifically oriented to small and medium-sized companies in a situation in which disruption is going to be the normal situation that all of us are going to suffer. So the question is, how should boards address this issue? So my first question here is your board in one of these three situations that we're going to mention or similar? Okay. Most of the companies I am seeing in practice are in the number one situation. The boards are delegating digital transformation issues to the CEO and to the C-level managers, but they are not reaping the benefits that are being expected. Still, they think that the C-level directors are the responsible to bringing the company into the next level, and normally they're talking about digitization, digital transformation, more as a technological issue. So they expect profits coming from operational productivity, cost cutting, bringing more income through, online, new channels, etc., etc. As we will see later, the boards basically have very, very few interest from a governance perspective of what is happening in digital transformation. The only thing they are saying is that the expected profits are not coming. The second situation is that the boards are being more and more aware of the threat of digital disruption, but have no idea as how to address this from a governance perspective. They know that they are increasingly aware that they cannot delegate these issues to the C-level management, but they still don't know how to face this issue. The third situation is the boards that know that digital disruption is very important for the future of the company, but it is not yet their main and critical job on the board. That means they have other critical issues like conformance to regulations, like transparency of information, all the typical roles of governance, but the role about how do they face the threat of disruption is not a priority. And you can see this easily when you look at the meetings of the boards, if digital disruption really appears as a strategic problem. So if your board is in one of these three or similar situations, then what we're going to mention here is important for you. In the sense that boards should be worried, very worried about disruption. And there are basically three reasons. Reason number one is that digital transformation will affect the core of your business sooner or later. We already have a lot of examples of businesses that are becoming obsolete because a new startup emerges with a completely different value proposition, or when their competitors innovate, leveraging into digital technologies, and they are unable to respond. Okay, so why? Because technology, specifically digital technology, has such an impact on the consumer, on the businesses, and on the environment, that if you don't take advantage of that, then your competitors will. So in that sense, we can say that disruption is the most critical business risk your company is facing. So in that sense, we have to clarify what is digital disruption. We have mentioned digital technology, and everybody knows what it means. But what is digital disruption? It is a situation where a company is unable to compete with a radically different business model from a competitor that leverages digital technologies in such a way that surprises your customers and makes your business proposition obsolete in comparison. It reshapes how value is created and distributed. So that is what digital disruption is about. Basically, if we don't adapt ourselves or innovate ourselves radically, what will happen is that we will face companies that are doing that and will basically lead the market in the future. So as one of the most important roles of the board is making a business sustainable in the future, this is a very strategic issue. So in some sectors, this is coming relatively quickly. In other sectors, it will take more time, but it will eventually come. So you have to be prepared, and you cannot be prepared for digital disruption like that. It takes years, and therefore, the sooner you start, the better. The second reason why boards should be worried is that 80% of corporate digital projects fail to reach their objectives. And this is a percentage that the most important international consulting companies are basically, they agree on this 70–80% of failures in digital transformation projects. We're talking about McKinsey, we're talking about BCG, we're talking about A.T. Kearney. So this is something which is quite surprising from the point of view of the amount of money that is being invested, and however, the failure to reach the expected outcomes of digital transformation projects. What are the major reasons for failure? Basically, three issues. One, short-term vision. Many companies believe that digital transformation have or requires a return on investment of 2 or 3 years. And normally that is not the case. Digital transformation projects are much more complex because they are not just technology projects. As we will see later, they affect all the areas of the company. So if I have, and it requires a long-term vision. So if I have a long-term project and I try to supervise them or reap the benefits in the short term, we have a bad equilibrium and a bad alignment with strategy. The second reason is why companies don't really have a digital strategy. I mean, all companies have a strategy, a corporate strategy or a business strategy, but digital technology is not at the core of that strategy, which means that when you design the strategy and when you define the projects that have to implement that strategy, they are not taking into account digital transformation as a whole. They only look at certain parts, like the marketing part, like the technological part, but not digital strategy in the sense of how the business model will change in the following years and how I can change that, leveraging into the possibilities of digital technologies. And the third, probably the most important reason for failure, is the cultural barriers to change. You know, digital transformation requires people to adapt, not only to adapt, to embrace change. And the culture of most companies and the people who work in companies are not prepared, are not mentally and emotionally prepared to adapt change at the rate of speed that is required in practice. So because they lack these skills, it's very different for them to be responsive, to be open with all the changes that all these technologies will require. So if you don't have the people side supporting your projects, the projects are not going to happen. So that's well, that means that in order to to avoid these failures like short-term, no digital strategy or cultural barriers, it is not enough to have the C-level directors or managers pushing for transformation. You need the board advocacy. You need digital transformation to be a key strategy, a key responsibility of the board of directors. The third reason why boards should be worried is that the board members, even if they are aware of this need, lack the know-how and experience in digital transformation in order to design and pilot critical digital initiatives. That means governance requires board enrichment. If the board of directors have to take control of this issue, they need to know that digital transformation is not about technology, but about strategy. It's not about cost cutting, it's about business model change. And all these issues are not normally in the experience of the board directors. So the question then is, okay, if this is the case, and we have to allow, or we are taking the decision to take action, how do we do this? It's very important not only to say what has to be done, but also how to do it. So in order to answer that question, there are two steps that we are going to go into the very much detail in our future conference. One is you have to adopt a practical framework of governance. And here we're talking about governance. You know, I have researched what type of governance exists in the world that concentrate in small to mid-sized companies. So most of the governance regulations exist for big companies listed in stock exchange markets. There are some exceptions to these. For example, we can mention that Hong Kong, Canada, and UK have done certain efforts to build governance guides for small and medium enterprises. But these are the exceptions to the rule. So first thing, we need to concentrate on the number of companies that really represent the biggest portion of the gross national product of a country. So in this sense, I am going to propose a governance model that is applicable spatially for small and medium-sized companies. The second thing is, okay, even though we can let's say promote a specific framework for governance for small and medium-sized companies. The question is if this governance includes sufficient practical issues to help boards to become disruption-ready boards. So in this sense, we are working on uncharted territory. Okay, and second, it's not only enough to have a framework. We should help companies define a personalized roadmap. Why? Because the starting point of each company is completely different. So if you have a framework, but you don't have a guide of how to put that into practice, the framework is very difficult to implement. So let's take a look at this framework of governance for a disruption-ready board. So we have 4 focus areas. Why 4 and not 6, 10, or 12? Well, we're going to explain it now. Basically, those 4 focus areas are board talent, digital strategy, cultural change, and C-level alignment. Here, we will only have some highlights on these issues. For example, when we're talking about board talent, as only 70% of small and medium enterprises boards have changed board composition due to digital transformation. Remember, we mentioned that if the board wants to take control of this issue, they need experience or they need know-how to be able to drive this issue. Well, only 17% of companies in Spain have changed the board composition. Let's say they have incorporated independent board members which have experience in digital transformation, or they have created a special committee or an advisors committee to help them in this issue. Well, there is a very small portion of companies which have taken this step. But if you don't take this type of step and your board doesn't have the internal talent to do it, then you cannot pilot a disruption in the future. So that's why one focus area is board talent. Okay, second focus area, digital strategy. Less than 20% of digital projects are related to long-term company competitiveness. What we mean is that disruption is a strategic issue. Disruption means that we need digital projects or digital initiatives to be defined and implemented. The question is that ask yourselves, if you map all the digital initiatives, projects that exist in your company, what percentage of these initiatives are short-term and which are long-term? Well, that is a research that we made in Spain just last year. And most of the data that we're going to show here that doesn't belong to international consultants come from this research, is that less than 20% of digital projects are related to long-term. So we need a digital strategy. The third focus area is cultural change. Only 30% of the companies are aware that digital strategy requires huge cultural change to be successful. Another research says that companies that are implementing digital strategy and are not taking into account cultural change have 5 times less success than the companies who integrate cultural change with digital strategy. And fourth focus area is C-level alignment. One thing is for the board to govern these issues, but who have to implement it is the C-level executives. Well, we need an alignment. We need to co-create with the C-level all of these issues. Now, this is the practical framework, but we will explain in the future. There is a second level, which is almost as important or even more important than these 4 focus areas, is to answer the question, okay, let's take any of these areas. How do I do this? Well, that is precisely the next layer. How do we implement board talent? We will see here that each of these focus have 2 answers or 2 projects that can help that question to be implemented. And that is the framework we're talking about. For example, if we look at board talent, we know that we have to create a disruption mindset, and we probably need an advisory board or external experts. So those are the 2 main ways to put this into practice. Are there other actions that can be taken? Yes, of course. But the 2 most important in our opinion, based in our experience in boards and my experience in creating more than 10 startup companies, etc., is that basically these 8 areas are the main practical steps you can take. Having said that, we also said, okay, you have to decide.
Hello, Sir Michael. This is Shira. Again, to remind you, please wrap up in 2 minutes.
Okay, very well. So basically what we're going to do is we are going to use this roadmap, and depending on the situation of your company, we're going to define different steps And these steps, these roadmaps are different from one to another. Just a final question. You yourself can answer if you are already in a disruption-ready board or not. Remember this, the framework. Give 5 points to each of these issues of how to do things. If you give 5 points to each and 0 to 5, this is the way to know if you have an excellent situation, a good, average, or poor. And a final question. How much does it take a board to become a disruption-ready board? This is more or less a brief idea. You have to jump from one place to another. So it's a long-term investment. The better, the earlier you do it, the better. So basically, companies have to be aware, the board of directors have to be aware of the risk of disruption. It has to be the main focus. And here, this framework explains how the boards can turn into a disruption-ready board. And I hope that we can go into much more detail in our presentation on October 27th. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your insightful talk, Sir Michael. I'd like to pass on the mic to Sir Bingo to introduce himself and for introducing his next topic.
Thank you, Shara. Good morning, everybody. Let me just go straight into my presentation. Okay, so the introduction I'd like to give you right now is all about the brand architecture masterclass. So just to go through the presentation, I'm going to go through just 3 parts. So it's quite brief. First is I want to introduce myself properly. Who am I? Second is what is the brand architecture masterclass all about? Third is how can the masterclass help you and your company? Okay, so those are the 3 parts. First, I want to introduce myself. So who am I? I just want to give you an introduction of my professional background. So I started my career in 1987 in Unilever. I joined the marketing management trainee program. Spent about more than 4 years there. And then I moved to Pure Foods to set up a marketing department for one of the new divisions that they were setting up. And then I moved to HSBC, where I spent 6 years to set up the marketing department, also HSBC Philippines, and also spent some time in Hong Kong. And then I moved to Burger King, where I also spent 6 years doing the role of franchise business leader for the Asia Pacific region, covering 11 markets, North Asia and South Asia. So that was I spent about 20 years in corporate. Then I moved into entrepreneurship, wherein I set up a learning and development company called BAC Consulting, which is focused primarily on brand architecture, brand positioning, brand strategy, etc. And also concurrently, I'm also involved in digital marketing companies, specifically Snapworks initially, and then which merged into becoming what is currently known as Ciclab Digital, wherein I'm a CEO. We also set up an in-store media company together with our Spanish partners from Barcelona. So we're primarily focused on in-store marketing for inside supermarkets and hypermarkets. And then last year, during the pandemic, I set up a new blog called Branding Nerd at PH. Actually, a lot of things I talk about in the masterclass can be found in that blog, in that website called brandingnerd.ph, which is primarily again focused on foundational branding and brand architecture. And finally, last year, I joined as a fellow of ICD as an associate. So I just want to flash this just to share with you that I've traversed both classical marketing from my corporate world into digital marketing also, which is a lot of the work I'm doing right now in the companies that I'm involved in. Okay, so second part is what is the brand architecture masterclass? Okay, so it's called the brand architecture, a valuable framework for setting strategy. Okay, this provides you the objective of the masterclass. So the objective of the masterclass is to help the leadership teams of companies and organizations understand the concepts and principles of branding and brand architecture so that the leaders will be able to strengthen their brands, of course, from the board, starting with the board, with the management teams, etc., So the vision is to transform brands, specifically Philippine brands, to become more focused, more cohesive, and more effective for the long term. So the main motivation that I had in developing this particular masterclass was really born out of an observation that a lot of Philippine companies, because a lot of my experience was from multinationals, but from what I've noticed is that among Philippine companies, even large Philippine companies, don't really have the overview of the entire brand architecture or a clear understanding or a comprehensive understanding of the brand architecture. And of course, this starts with the board, because the board has the overall responsibility of setting strategy for which the brand architecture is based upon. The masterclass itself has 3 parts. And it answers 3 questions. The first question is, what is branding and why is it important for business? So that goes into the correct definition. So it's a foundational definition of branding. In that first part also, we talk about the principles of brand positioning, so that there's also a clear understanding of that. Another motivation I had in developing this masterclass was that I also noticed that there is a misconception of branding. When you say branding, people think the logo, that's branding. It is part of branding, but it's not branding per se. And they say, oh, the ads are branding, or social media is branding. All of these are just elements of the entire brand architecture. So that's what I go through. The second module answers the question, what does it take to build a strong brand? So this is where I actually introduce the framework of the brand architecture. And I go through the 3 phases of the architecture itself in the right sequence. So there's actually a correct sequence of following in terms of building the brand architecture. And the last module answers the question, what does it take to sustain? So that's actually the more important part, because it's not enough to build or design and build and launch a brand, but rather it's more important to sustain the brand for the long term. I'm sure all of you are quite familiar with a lot of iconic global brands, and a lot of those brands have outlived their founders and probably on their 3rd, 4th, 5th generation already. So they can really last for a long time. And that's the reason why brands are able to sustain themselves and feel current and fresh and modern and relevant, is because they are able to sustain properly. And that's what I go through in the 3rd module. This provides a little more detail on the content of those 3 modules. So there's actually this is the first version, which is called which is the 2-hour version, which I'll be conducting in December of this year. And there's another version, which is actually a 1.5-day version, which I'll talk about later. So this is the 2-hour version, and if you notice, there are 3 words here: understanding, building, and sustaining. And that's really the framework of the learning that's really the learning framework. So the first part is all about understanding. And as I mentioned earlier, we talk about the definition of branding, the correct definition of branding. And we use a couple of examples there to illustrate it better. Then we talk about the 6 principles of positioning. And finally, we talk about the relevance of brand to the business or organizations. In the second one, this is the building part, and these are the 3 major phases that I discuss: brand strategy, brand identity, brand marketing, in that right sequence. Excuse me. And then finally, in the sustaining phase, this is where I talk about the life cycles or the stages of the life cycle of a brand. Then we go into a deeper dive into the brand architecture concept. And we talk about innovation. Okay. The second version actually is a 1.5-day workshop as a masterclass plus workshop. That's why it takes a longer time, because of the workshop that's happening during the time. And the content is the same, but there are workshops that are done by the participants now. So you can see here on the right side the output of those particular workshops. So for every module, there are workshops. There are specific outputs. So in the first module, output is the customer analysis and competitor analysis and SWOT analysis of the brand, or the brands for that matter, of the company. That leads into the second module, the output is what we call the open hole identification. I explained the concept of open hole actually in the first module, and the output of the first module leads into the open hole identification. Now, the open hole identification leads into the brand positioning development for the brand, and that leads in turn leads into development of the battle cry for the brand itself, and of course the brand personality. And then lastly, the output for the third module is really the innovations across the 6 P's of brand marketing. So this is what is also known as the marketing mix. So that's where we did talk about that, which leads into a master plan, 12-month, at least a draft master plan. And finally, I also talk about the OKR system, which is a quarterly management tool that helps the whole organization monitor, measure, and also innovate and align to make sure everybody is cohesive and consistent across the organization. This is actually the framework of the entire brand architecture. You can see here the phases on the right side, 1, 2, and 3, brand strategy, brand identity, and brand marketing. So I go through the entire thing throughout the masterclass, and I explain all of these elements in detail. And throughout the second and third parts, which is the second, third module, we actually focus on one particular brand, and that's Starbucks. And the reason why I do that is because of 2 things. Number one, Starbucks is a familiar brand. I'm pretty sure all of you are probably familiar with Starbucks. But more importantly, the second reason is that they have an excellent brand architecture. So it's actually easier to understand all the concepts by seeing it from a live example, which is particularly Starbucks. So I go through that. So we use Starbucks specifically in the second and third module. But in the first module, we discuss a lot of other brands. Okay, so how does this masterclass help your company? So I guess that's the relevant question to all of you who are attending here, no? And it actually brings us to the governance charter, which ICD is very much a champion of. No? So really firming up the vision, mission, and core values of the company. Now, if you look at the vision and mission and values, this is really the definition of those 3. So vision is what you seek to be and when. Mission is what you do and who you are. And I would suggest actually that is very much what the brand architecture is all about. Who is what you do and who you are. What is your identity? What do you do so that your customers are actually able to experience your brand? And finally, what you believe in can also be part of the branding, because that describes values. And if you translate that into branding lingo, that's actually your brand personality. Okay, so there is a very close relationship between the brand architecture and specifically the mission statement of the brand or the company. I want to share this quote from John Noel Kapferer. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly, but he's a well-known consultant on branding, brand strategy. And he said this: a brand's strength is built upon its determination to promote its own values and mission. So a relentless pursuit of the mission and the values actually strengthens the brand. So it's very important for the board, the management team, to actually understand the brand architecture so that as they pursue the mission of the company, it actually strengthens the brand. If you look at the mission statement as promoted by ICD, there are 4 specific elements, that describe a mission statement. Number 1, it is a mandate or purpose, just like a brand purpose. There is a problem being solved or being addressed, or a need being addressed. There is a unique value proposition. So the mission statement is unique to the company and unique to the brand. And finally, it's permanent and timeless. So normally brand strategy stays on for a long time. So if you look at these 4 elements, purposeful, needs-based, unique, and timeless, that builds into the mission statement, that's precisely what builds the brand. And that's exactly what how a brand actually, when we talk about open hole identification, number one, it has to be needs based. When you identify the open hole in the market, it's all about what are customers looking for. That's needs based now. And number two is competitive analysis. What are your competitors doing so that you don't do the same thing? So that makes you unique. Diba? So it's very aligned. So mission statements actually very much aligned with the brand architecture. Okay. So just to summarize, what I'm saying here is that in terms of my own advocacy, in terms of brand architecture excellence, that can really help build into the or help support the governance charter that the boards obviously have the primary responsibility of promoting. So that really is a very much integral to the corporate governance. Okay. So as a next step, you have two options. Option one is to register for the 2-hour brand architecture masterclass in December 15, 2023. And option two is you can contact ICD for an exclusive face-to-face 1.5-day masterclass and workshop. And that can happen anytime between now and actually anytime. So we can arrange that through ICD. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much again, Sir Bingo, for your discussion on a brand architecture. We'll now go to the last preview discussion. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kenneth Hartigango. He's a teaching fellow of the ICD, a non-research fellow of the Ateneo Policy Center of the School of Government, program director for leadership and innovation of the Ateneo School of Government, and he is an adjunct faculty at the Asian Institute of Management, where he also served as the school head of AIM's Stephen Swellig School of Development Management. Dr. Ken is an honorary visiting associate professor of the Swee Hock School of Public Health, National University of Singapore, and he was the Philippine Department of Health Undersecretary in 2015 to 2016. He was also the Director General of Food and Drugs Administration from 2012 to 2014, and the Deputy Director for the Bureau of Food and Drugs in 1999 to 2001. Let's all welcome Dr. Kenneth Hartigango, introducing his topic, Disruptive Health Innovations.
Thank you. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, but you're unmuted. We can hear you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to present my slides so that we can go ahead and have this. Let me remove the floating controls. All right. Thank you very much for inviting me. Let me give you a short program about this masterclass. Topic for today is disruptive health innovations, and it's time that we create value. And this is targeted to 3 different kinds of audience. The industry as a player of health sector and providing health services because of the concern in reporting ESG. Secondly, because you are in the board and in the management, employers of Philippine human resource, taking good care of them by providing them better packages in healthcare will keep them healthy, productive, and also provide a better branding for your workplace as a good employer. And thirdly, as an investor in health technology, we believe that a rising tide will lift all ships in the society, so it addresses sustainable development goals because of understanding of health system. We begin by looking at the big perspective of healthcare. It's a wicked problem. In the Philippines, there are many complex concerns. But if we narrow down what the problems, it's really inefficiency, a fragmentation of services, and people have inequities in terms of access. 3 problems. First problem is health security. We have access to protection problems, and we've been seeing pandemics in the background of a very fragile health system. Secondly, the health governance that we are seeing right now, and private sector can play a good part in shaping health governance both in the public and private domain. In case you are wishing to enter into private-public partnership, is shifting the performance metrics into outcomes. Let me share with you what are the traditional problems we have. We have been focused so much in building the pillars on the left side of the slide. which is important, but we neglect what is the overall goal and outcomes that we want to achieve, which is really improve health for our workers and our people and uplifting our society. Financial risk protection is another important point. I mean, I'm sure you have many household workers at home who might be sick and oftentimes is looking for better healthcare for them at an affordable cost. Seems to be the major concern of many employers. Third problem, if you have been reading the newspaper, you will see that there is a human resource for health problem. It is a global phenomenon that we're going to have many health workers are going to be exploited. They're going to go abroad, and this will create a problem for our own healthcare security. So we ask this question: if the health system of the country is heavily regulated and it's composed of many ideologies, has many moving parts, why is it that we are not able to perform better? The outcomes are not good. And in fact, there is an inequity issue where the rich gets better and the poor doesn't get a good basic health care. So health is very fragmented, and part of the problem is because of our law devolving many of the services to local government. Mind you, some are doing quite well, but some are not doing as expected. No. Now, if you have companies and factories in the far-flung areas in the provinces, you of course want to create a system that will benefit your workers, and understanding how to partner with the local health system is part of the game in this masterclass. Few are going to intervene at all in terms of improving healthcare. We could break it down into components. Earlier, I showed you the pillars or the 6 building blocks, and they can range from governance and policy all the way to management of people, access to laboratory services and medicine, creating a better information system, which unfortunately, as of the moment, is very weak. And there's a space for IT companies to play a role here, and of course, financing. So we begin by saying we can't solve the problems of our society with the same thinking we use them that we used when we created them. No? So the problems of the problems that we see today need solution that will involve and solve the problems of the future. And therefore, we introduce disruptive solutions. Economists in January 2003 predicted that in the next 5 to 25 years, there would be big shift in terms of disruptive technology. Everybody has heard of fourth industrial revolution. I'm going to tell you that's going to be superseded by artificial intelligence, and they're going to get involved with medical decision support. There will be better technology on health sensors, and there will be genomic analysis, personalized medicine, 3D printing, and computer-brain interface. But are we prepared for investing in these kind of things? I mean, if you want to put your company into such an investment, it would, of course, uplift the way things are done. But our problem is, will it then polarize the rich and the poor? If our statement here is about sustainability, equity, better governance, how do we uplift the needs of other people so that it is not a technology only for the rich? So the need to innovate and disrupt is very important. Here you see a picture of young doctors. We are shepherding doctors of the barrio, all 167 of them. And they have been into the field working in real time with different health workers and with poverty of resources. They are able to come up with innovations. When we challenge them with design thinking of a solution, they are able to come up with apps prototype that will create better literacy in healthcare, access to financing, access to jobs, where to get resources for medical services is something that is worth looking at, and this will be the future of healthcare. And in order to change the system that we have, both internally in your company and also outside, there are different steps to follow, all the way down to leadership. But you can see innovation is number 16, pretty high up there. If we do our job in building the ladders, going up and designing, creating structures, innovation is in fact one of them. So I introduced the masterclass on health design thinking, where complex solution or wicked problem can be approached with some new paradigms and looking at things from reframing. So if you design things, there will be three elements here. People, how do we design things that will make emotional innovations happen, and functional innovation interface with technology, and between business and technology, the important for process innovation. So there are steps and discipline that we follow in order to achieve design thinking prototypes that can be translated, commercialized, that improves the health system in our country. And therefore, there's an imperative as well to look into artificial intelligence, no? Because we have such a fragile health system, can AI, this is a science of the future, but it's already here. Can they play a role in improvement of our health system? There are three problems. The first one is knowledge explosion. Do you know that every 73 days, a cycle of every 73 days, that medical knowledge is going to double in terms of content? And we've seen that during the pandemic, where everybody was involved, many people were involved with creating new knowledge in order to solve a pandemic. And this is going to happen more and more as the years go by. Secondly, I mentioned that there will be global shortage in healthcare professionals. 13 million healthcare workers around the world by 2035. But you see, here's a problem. Developed countries who are in need of healthcare professionals are now importing and employing our precious commodity in the country. Doctors, nurses, technicians, including teachers of the health sciences. So what is this? How is this going to affect us in the future? Now, if you feel that our healthcare system is already fragile and it's going to be compounded with this further problem, what will happen to your industry? You should be involved and worried because your workers will not be healthy. So the question we ask here is, nurses in fact a commodity of trade or a public good? And where will be the nexus of AI and technology plugging this gap? Digitalization burnout, we've seen that among doctors looking for information in order to do a better job. There's such too much information, and patients are in fact looking for independence in making those decisions themselves. So this is a technology-inspired problem, needs a technology-inspired solution. Doctors who don't know the answer have already been looking into available information in the social media in order to guide them in decision-making support. Computers now, and I would encourage you to look deeply into this, no? Computers now can do something better than human beings because of these three arguments. It has many uses. It can reduce errors in variation in intervention by clinician. There is a faster forecasting of health data. What is going to happen, for instance, in a province where there might be an epidemic would help you and protect you in your industry, increasing the accuracy in solving complex problems and designing drugs cheaply and faster, especially if you're in the pharmaceutical industry. The estimate there is that it takes about 13 billion and close to 20 years to be able to come up with a medicine that is innovative and with its breakthrough medicine, for instance. But with AI, it would then do it much more efficiently. It can detect almost 200 million proteins and then identify which one will work or not, cutting down on expenses. So AI is a new technology, but you will encounter problems. Regulators may not know how to regulate this new technology, new innovation, and therefore, if you are in the education sector, there must be some way that you could introduce and learn about reforms in health science education. I know that we have members in ICD who are into education sector, but you see our science, STEM, for instance, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education is still has a lot of room for improvement. And can we do something in this space that will promote your ESG? And while we are afraid that AI might take over human professionals, I mean, do you trust an AI to make a diagnosis for you and life and death decisions? Don't be afraid, because AI is not going to replace human intervention totally. This is the prediction of many of the scientists and policymakers, but it can augment our meager healthcare professionals and find a way to cut costs in order to improve equity to access to expensive healthcare. So it is crucial, therefore, to invest in leadership and governance in all the sectors, because after all, whatever industry you're in, health is going to be a problem that you will encounter for yourself and for your employees, and it's actually everybody's business. So I end here and happy to answer some questions if there are any, in order to improve our society in accessing better healthcare. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kenneth, for an insightful discussion on disruptive health innovations. And to our esteemed speakers, we would like to congratulate and thank you for a very great discussion and for the successful launching of the ICD Masterclass. With that, let's have a quick photo op with all the speakers. If you would please open your cameras for those that are still here. All right. Hiding some of the non-video participants. And please hold your smiles in 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you, everyone. And again, we just have a few remaining announcements for everyone. All right. Thank you very much to all the participants who joined us today. We invite you to also join the individual sessions of our speakers and to learn more about their topics as they deep dive onto the core of corporate governance. Next slide, please. The program or registration fee is 3,000 pesos per session. The complete package of the sessions is priced at 12,000 pesos. Please kindly visit our website at icd.ph to know more about the other topics of the masterclass series and its speakers by reading the event brochure that will be sent after the event. If you have any questions, please list them down and attend the scheduled solo session per speaker. Just in case your company already needs the question answered before the actual date of the solo sessions, we can arrange an exclusive session for you or your preferred date and time. Please feel free to contact the ICD team so we can discuss your needs. You may also contact us through programs at icd.ph for any questions that you may have for the speakers. Please do send us the feedback via the evaluation form link posted in the chat box, and you may also scan the QR code flashed on your screen. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day and be safe.
Thank you. Thank you.